chat. It's some smooth fucking jazz here, bro. Hell yeah. That's right. Dun dun. What's up, cat? How's it going? That was my head. Master input gain. Master output. I'll +3 it. All right. I don't know how my voice has been sounding. +3 might be too much, huh? Go with that. Yeah. Okay. Now you won't hear background noise, hopefully. Oh yeah, it's too good now. Maybe like it. Only too good is the best.
Welcome to...
Right. The fucking gate. The fucking gate was on, mate. Let's go.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. A gunman charged a security checkpoint at the White House car.
Absolute insanity on the weekend. As you can see, it's absolute insanity. Guy comes in. Fully loaded. Trying to kill someone at the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Correspondents' Dinner Saturday night at the Washington Hilton.
Saturday night, folks.
Exchanging gunfire with law enforcement before being subdued and taken into custody. President Trump and other senior administration officials were abruptly evacuated from the ballroom.
That's why he was staring at you from the curtains. Interesting.
As Secret Service agents swarmed the venue and some attendees ducked under tables. The suspect has been identified as 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen from Torrance, California.
What a mugshot.
He checked into the hotel the day before, traveling by train.
Like, yep, this is how we treat our black folk in America. Hasn't changed in 200 years.
From Los Angeles to Chicago to Washington, D.C. Allen's expected to be formally charged in court today. He reportedly left behind a written manifesto in which he stated he wanted to target officials in the Trump administration. In his so-called manifesto, the suspected gunman does not mention President
Cash,
Trump by
though.
name, but writes, quote,
He's like, yeah, I didn't want Cash to die.
I'm a citizen of the United States of America. What my representatives do reflects on me, and I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes, unquote. In an interview with 60 Minutes, President Trump became defensive when host Norah O'Donnell read an excerpt of the suspect's manifesto.
Do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person.
I'm not a pedophile.
I got associated with
I'm mad because
all
you called me
stuff
what
that
I
has
am.
nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side.
There's this show on Netflix I've been watching called Trust Me. It's about the LDS cult. And Trump has the same vibes as that guy in this show that's the pedophile. Yeah, he does. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a good vibe reader.
Of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself,
Samuel is the
I'll
guy
do
in the
this
show.
interview, and they'll
It's a
probably. I
documentary.
read the manifesto. He's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that, because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I
these
was
are the
never.
gunman's words.
Excuse me.
Excuse me.
You shouldn't
Shut
be
up,
reading
woman.
that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace.
He might as well say that.
President Trump
He might as well
quickly
say that.
moved
That's
to
how rude that
use
was.
the attack to promote the massive new
Excuse me.
ballroom he's constructing on the White House grounds, posting
So either you get really mad when people accuse you of something you haven't done, or you overreact when someone suggests that you might be part of that same cabal.
on Truth Social Sunday morning. This event would never have happened with the militarily top-secret ballroom currently under construction at the White House.
Okay, so it has a fucking nuclear fallout shelter, and you don't want to tell us. Is that what it is? Big deal. The military's gonna have a base under there. It'll be great.
Cannot be built fast enough, he said. The Justice Department also used the
Bro. But look, I've already heard about this all weekend. Bro, this guy was on a different level than Trump. He didn't even make it in the door. He only made it to the beginning of the door. Half the videos out there are AI generated and are not correct. There's so much disinformation out there that's put out there on purpose that you can't figure out what's really going on. Yeah. Meantime, there's Trump behind the curtains staring at everyone running.
shooting at the White House Correspondents' Dinner to try to pressure the National Trust for Historic Preservation to drop their
sure we'll
lawsuit
see it.
against Trump's $400 million ballroom project. Assistant Attorney General
It's all
Brett
I care
Cheney
about, the
gave the trust
ballroom.
until 9 a.m. today.
The front opens up like a Model Y, just like Elon would say, and that's where the missiles come out. The front just goes up like, eh. And the missiles, the response missiles, the one big nuclear missile is going to be right there in the middle. And I can push the button, or whoever's here, doesn't matter. That's right.
To dismiss its lawsuit, writing in a letter that the ballroom,
Probably.
quote, will
Not far
ensure
from the
the
truth.
safety and security of the president for decades to come and prevent future
He's probably like, why do we have a separate building where we have to go? There's like tunnels under there, and they escape through tunnels. You know that, right?
assassination
already
attempts on the
tunnels.
president at the Washington Hilton. Meanwhile, on
He probably walked in and he's like, why isn't there a ballroom right above this tunnel? That's the way it should be in a supervillain movie. He's got the ballroom, and right below it is a secret entrance to the tunnel. That's right. He comes up on an elevator and pops up in the middle of the floor. No one sees him.
Sunday, 9 people were injured in a mass shooting near the
Fucking
campus
crazy, bro.
of the University of Indiana, Bloomington. Ceasefire talks between the
This is a
U.S. and
timeline
Iran
I did not think
collapsed
we would
over
be
the
on.
weekend. President Trump abruptly canceled a planned trip to Pakistan by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner,
Islamabad
posting the
talks.
decision on Truth Social
Holy shit.
minutes after Pakistani officials announced that the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi had left Islamabad. Araghchi traveled today to Moscow to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin to discuss the ceasefire negotiations. Axios is reporting Iran
They're
gave
like,
the U.S.
"Ha ha,
a new
fake."
proposal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and
was
end the
actually
war,
Trump.
with nuclear negotiations postponed for a later stage. Meanwhile, Reuters reports an internal Pentagon email has outlined options for punishing NATO allies the Trump administration believes failed to support the U.S. operations in the Iran war, including
More like
suspending
OTAN.
Spain
NATO, more
from
like
the alliance.
OTAN.
Lebanon's health ministry reports Israeli strikes killed 14 people and wounded 37 others on Sunday, including 2 children. Despite the U.S.-brokered ceasefire, the Israeli military also ordered residents to evacuate 7 towns north of the Litani River beyond the so-called buffer zone Israeli forces have occupied. Meanwhile, Hezbollah said it had attacked Israeli troops inside Lebanon, as well as the rescue force that came to evacuate them. 1 Israeli soldier was killed and 6 more wounded.
Motherfuckers.
More than 2,500 people have been killed in Israeli strikes across Lebanon since
check.
March 2nd, including 177 children and 100 medics, according to Lebanon's health ministry. More than 1.2 million people, nearly a fifth of Lebanon's population, have been displaced.
1/5 of
In
the
Gaza,
population.
Israeli forces killed
brothers
at
and
least 12
sisters.
Palestinians.
Literally. My grandpa, Lebanese immigrant. My grandpa on my mom's side, Lebanese immigrant. From Lebanon. Yeah.
Friday, including 8 people killed when Israeli forces struck a police vehicle in Khan Yunis. A separate attack in Gaza City killed 2 police officers. 2 others were killed in the bombing of a house in Beit Lahia in northern Gaza. Since the U.S.-brokered ceasefire last year, Israel's killed at least 984 Palestinians. This is Ala Jaber. His brother was killed in an Israeli attack on Friday.
They should find a solution. Enough. They should find a solution. Where's the new government? Where's the new government? Where is it? You hear of 5, 10 more.
Bro, I'm sorry. Your government is corrupt. Yes. The Lebanese government is kept the way it is on purpose by the CIA fucking A and Mossad.
Martyrs every day. Where?
gonna say it right
The
now.
Israelis advance on us, fire and projectiles, and we are living in the east
Dude,
of Gaza, close to
wake
death.
up.
Where should we go?
Wake up. Your government is run by the CIA. CIA. The CIA.
The U.S. Justice
I
Department
suck.
said Friday it'll use firing squads and single drug lethal injections to kill condemned federal prisoners as it seeks to ramp up and expedite capital punishment. It's also planning to impose new restrictions on the ability of death row prisoners.
Can we impeach this motherfucker, please? Holy shit. If there's anything we elected our fucking people to do, it's to make sure this couldn't happen. Are you kidding me? I'm so mad right now.
To seek clemency or pardons, along with a regulation designed to cut years off the federal appeals process for state death penalty cases. At the Vatican, Pope Leo
Fucking pathetic,
reiterated
dude.
the Catholic Church's
Telling you.
opposition to capital punishment on the same day the Trump administration announced its plans to expedite,
tired of this.
expand state-sanctioned killings.
In this regard, we affirm that the dignity
Like every fucking day. He's trying to make it more dystopian and more terrible. Like there's no way to avoid it anymore. I'm sorry, I just don't have any empathy for anyone supporting this motherfucker right now. None. You had your chance to give him up. You've had your chance to disown him. At this point, he is such a pathetic piece of shit. I'm talking about Trump. That if you don't disown him at this point, I have no sympathy for what happens to you. Period. And what's going to happen to you is you're going to be fucking poor. Okay? I mean, I'm going to be there with you, but you're going to be even more poorer than you think you are. You're not going to be an embarrassed billionaire. You're going to be an embarrassed hundredaire. You're only going to have $100. You're going to be fucked. You bet on the fucking fascist pig, okay? Talking about the Trump voter.
Of the person is not lost even after various serious crimes are committed.
Yes.
Furthermore, effective systems of detention can be and have been developed that protect citizens, while at the same time do not completely deprive those who are guilty of the possibility of redemption.
Yes.
Later in the broadcast,
agree.
we'll speak with Sister Helen Prejean, the renowned anti-death penalty activist. We'll speak to her in Chicago, where Pope Leo comes from. The Board of Immigration Appeals, BIA, has issued a ruling that makes it easier for the Trump administration to deport people with DACA. That's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals.
Why?
The new precedent decision by a 3-judge panel outlined DACA can no longer guarantee deportation relief for thousands of people. The BIA operates within the Department of Justice. The ruling came in the case of Catalina Xochitl Santiago, a DACA recipient and immigration rights advocate who was released from an ICE jail last October after being detained for about 2 months. The targeting of people with DACA has intensified under Trump's second term, with nearly 300 DACA recipients arrested last year, according to the Texas Tribune. In Colorado, an Egyptian mother and her 5 children were detained by federal immigration agents for several hours Saturday, less than 2 days after a federal judge ordered their release from the only U.S. family detention center where they'd been imprisoned for 10 months.
Really?
Hayam al-Gamal was arrested when she complied with a requirement she check in with an ICE office
haven't they
in
learned?
Denver.
Stop doing
Her
that, you guys. You can't do that. If you hear this, you can't check in. Don't check in. It's a trick. La migra. Chinga la migra. Chinga la migra. Fucking chingas.
Here says she and her children were put aboard a deportation flight, but were removed from the plane before it could leave the U.S. after a federal court granted an emergency injunction. The El Gamal family has already endured the longest-known family detention under President Trump's second term at the South Texas Family Residential Center in Dilley, where they say their mental health suffered as they endured abhorrent medical care, rotten food, and a disregard for their religious freedom to practice Islam, they said.
Bullshit.
The Department of Homeland Security has given guidance to immigration officers instructing them to deny green cards to immigrants who burn the U.S. flag, criticize the state of Israel, or participate in pro-Palestinian.
What fucking country is this? How about you fuck yourself, Israel? That's my answer.
And campus protests. That's according to the New York Times, citing internal DHS training documents which have not been previously reported.
Fuck the DHS.
The guidance discourages officers from granting permanent residency to people with a history of, quote, endorsing, promoting, or supporting anti-American views or anti-Semitic terrorism, ideologies, or groups, unquote. One example of questionable speech provided to officers is social media post that declares, quote, stop Israeli terror in Palestine, unquote, and shows the Israeli flag crossed out.
Israel, the Zionist pigs are going to be coming in and telling Americans that they cannot protest their genocide? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Okay? This is not America. This is not how we operate. Left or right, this is not right. There you go. There's the slogan. Left or fucking right, this is not right.
In Washington, D.C., a federal appeals court ruled Trump's claims of an invasion in order to shut down asylum requests at the U.S.-Mexico border is unlawful.
That's subtle.
ACLU attorney Lee Gallant,
Like it.
who argued the case, said, quote, "This decision puts an end to the inhumane Trump policy of sending people, including families with little children, back to horrific danger without even a hearing," unquote. Trump issued the proclamation on his first day back in office.
Oh, shit.
The U.S. military said Sunday it carried out another strike on a boat in the eastern Pacific Ocean, killing at least 3 people. U.S. Southern Command shared a video of a boat bursting into flames as it moved through open international waters. The Trump administration once again claimed the vessel was carrying drugs without providing any evidence. Since September, the Pentagon says it's killed at least 185 people in strikes on boats in the Caribbean and Pacific. The attacks have been widely condemned as illegal. The Mexican government said Saturday the 2 U.S. CIA agents killed in a car crash in northern Mexico after a drug raid earlier this month were not authorized to participate in such operations in the country. The car crash prompted an investigation into the agent's role, with Mexico's Ministry of Security saying in a statement, quote, "Mexican law is clear. It does not permit the participation of foreign agents in operations within the national territory," unquote. 2 Mexican law enforcement officers were also killed in the crash. In Ukraine, Russian drone and missile attacks killed at least 16 people over the weekend, including 9 people killed in Dnipro, where a Russian onslaught sparked fires across the city and partly destroyed several blocks of homes and businesses. Dozens of people were left wounded. This is a 74-year-old resident of Dnipro who narrowly avoided death when his apartment building was bombed.
Can you imagine the force of the explosion? It was so
Fix my
loud.
camera.
I was laying down
fixed
when
the
the
camera.
first went off. Debris started
Dude.
raining down on me, and the balcony was blown away. I had just grabbed a cigarette and gone into the
Dnipro.
toilet, and the last blast, it went off right next to me, and everything came
Bro,
crashing
he's so
down.
lucky.
If I hadn't gone to the toilet,
shit.
I don't know if I'd still be alive.
He went to
Meanwhile,
the toilet.
Russian officials say a Ukrainian attack on the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant killed a worker. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, said it had launched an investigation and reiterated that
Damn,
such
son.
attacks, quote, endanger nuclear safety and must not take place, unquote.
No
In
shit.
Mali, armed Tuareg separatists joined fighters with an al-Qaeda-linked affiliate in a massive coordinated attack on the capital Bamako and 4 other cities Saturday. Amidst reports of explosions and gunfire at Bamako's international airport, officials reported Mali's defense minister, Sadio Kamara, was killed when an apparent suicide attacker set off a truck bomb at his residence. Mali's military ruler, General Assimi Goïta, was reportedly moved to a secure location after his home was targeted. He has yet to make a public statement.
It's numero 6 when you search for news. It's pretty good, huh?
And Maine's Democratic governor, Janet Mills, has vetoed what would have been the nation's first statewide moratorium on large AI data centers. Mills said in a statement she'd
someone
blocked
bought
the landmark
her.
bill because it did not include an exception on a data center in the town of Jay at the site of a vacant mill that shuttered in 2023.
What?
Maine's data center moratorium had drawn strong bipartisan support and was backed by Maine residents who'd raised alarm about the potential threats to the environment and higher energy costs. At least a half a dozen states, including New York and Michigan, have considered similar measures. To see our coverage of this story with the sponsor of the Maine legislation, go to democracynow.org. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications.
All right. Oh, shoot. It looks like that's all good news. You guys like my 2D background? Mold art. Pixelized.
We're now learning more details about the suspect in last night's shooting at the dinner where the president was in
3D
attendance
art.
on the dais. Bill Maloogian was at the dinner. He has more on the investigation.
The original photo that I rendered on Maya took like 12 hours to render.
And Bill, I saw one of your posts, and you have to point out right now the fact that Secret Service has not been funded in 71 days. You wrote that earlier.
Yeah, Maria, good morning to you. DHS has been unfunded since the middle of February. So, yes,
They're going to blame it on that. Fuck you. What does that have to do with anything? They stopped him. They didn't even have to kill him.
some frontline Secret Service
What's the
agents have
complaint?
been paid during that time through other means.
The
But a lot of
hotel
their
was
support staff
fine.
haven't. In the meantime, we're learning more about the suspect here, 31-year-old Cole Allen of Torrance, California. I'm told by multiple federal law enforcement sources familiar with this investigation that
What is the
after he was
argument,
arrested
anyway?
last night, he made some initial comments to
If
investigators.
someone would have died,
where,
I would
He
understand.
admitted that his intent.
Like, I think they expected someone to die. That's the problem here. That's the hole in the story. Is that no one has been hurt? I think they weren't expecting that.
Was to target Trump administration officials. Now, our colleague David Spunt just talked to some federal law enforcement sources. He is being told that
Someone
Allen
was
checked
supposed
into
to
that
die,
Washington
and they
Hilton
didn't
hotel
die.
on
That's why
Friday.
we have
So
to
that would be
tell
the
the
day
fake
before
news, the
White
fake
House
news.
correspondent dinner, and that while he was initially talking to investigators after his arrest, he is no longer being cooperative. We do know that search warrants were served at his home in.
Apparently, he hasn't seen Mike from PA's PSA, where it's, if you're arrested by the cops, shut the fuck up. If you're pulled over by the cops, shut the fuck up. If your mom's pulled over and in jail for the cops, shut the fuck up.
Torrance, California last night.
Remember when they read your rights? They'll use what you said before they read you your rights. Because your rights, when they read them to you, are anything you say can and will be used against you. Can and will be used against you. Don't say anything. Shut the fuck up. Get pulled over while not driving partially drunk? Shut the fuck up.
As well as his hotel room at the Washington Hilton. They're going to be seizing any electronic devices, trying to figure out how long he had allegedly been planning this and who else he may have been in contact with. David reports that his family members are currently being interviewed and that right now investigators are currently talking to credit card companies to go through his purchases and figure out where he got that shotgun, where he got the handgun, and again, he brought 2 knives with him.
Even if you lie, it can and will be used against you in a court of law. Shut the fuck up.
So what we're being told right now, Maria, is yes, initially he was talking to investigators, told them his intent was to target the Trump administration, but he is no longer being cooperative right now.
All right, Bill, thank you. Bill Maloogian live in Washington this morning. And as you just heard, law enforcement says the shooter apparently was a guest at the Washington Hilton. He had multiple weapons on him, including a shotgun, a handgun, and knives. Joining me now is former FBI agent Nicole Parker with more on this ongoing investigation. Nicole, thanks for being here. What is the FBI looking at first, in your view?
Well, Maria, initially, the FBI is going to obviously be responding to the crime scene. They're going to be coordinating with the Metropolitan Police Department, with the Secret Service, with all federal, state, and local partners. This is an all-hands-on-deck approach. The evidence response team was immediately deployed to the scene to process that lobby where the incident did occur. They will be gathering ballistics. Those things will be sent off to Quantico for extensive research, and they will no stone will be left unturned in this investigation. I can tell you that right now. The FBI will be the lead investigation, but they will receive assistance from all of these other agencies. So again, they're looking at the lobby. Then they are going to the hotel room where he was staying. They have to process that hotel room, gather evidence from there as well, while simultaneously across the country, they are getting search warrants and have executed search warrants on his home. And I can tell you that when you go do a search warrant at a home, a lot of times you find evidence in that home that allows you to then say, look, we now need to go to a storage unit and execute a search warrant here. So it leads you down a path, and then you continue to execute search warrants.
He's just
Behind
a disgruntled.
the scenes, the FBI is gathering what we
He's
call
just a
preservation
disgruntled
letters.
fucking
Because what we
lib.
know is that people always try to take
You
down
don't
the
think
proof
there's
of their
people like
evidence,
that
the
out
things that
right
they
now?
did.
They're not-
No,
they're
that will
pissed
not
off?
happen. The FBI will have preservation
Libs?
letters that will preserve every single shred of evidence as it was when this occurred.
Yeah, and they
The
have
FBI
just as
will
many
also be
guns as
working
the fucking
extensively
MAGA.
to
So
interview witnesses. I guarantee you many people in that ballroom will be interviewed at some point. They will also be interviewing family members, associates, former classmates, colleagues.
Okay.
And we've discussed this, and I've heard it. The FBI obviously attempted to interrogate this individual after he was Mirandized, and apparently he is not wanting to talk to law enforcement. That is, quite common, where they don't want to talk to you without an attorney present.
That's
But
common?
what the FBI is
Yeah.
doing is they're building a profile. Who is this person?
Shut
They're
the
going
fuck
through
up.
all of his
If you're
digital
arrested,
devices, building
shut
a digital
the
footprint,
fuck
taking in
up.
any
Only
tips.
talk to a
If you have
lawyer.
any tips, you need to call 800-CALL-FBI. No piece of information is too small. And I think it's important to note the DOJ's important role in this, because the FBI gathers the evidence, DOJ prosecutes.
can I call you up, Mr. FBI or Mrs. FBI agent, and tell you you're not doing your job? Is that no tip is unturned? Okay.
Judge Janine Pirro, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, said,
Can I call you and tell you that your lead dude is a piece of shit loser called Kash Patel and shouldn't be your boss? Can I do that? Can I call you and tell you that?
very boldly last night. Initially, he will be charged with Title 18 U.S. Code Section 111 and Title 18 U.S. Code Section 924C. That would be an assault on a federal officer.
Can I say that specifically because this guy called out Kash Patel for some reason as being safe? I don't know why.
And using a firearm to commit a violent crime. But Maria, those are...
It only makes me think that he liked Kash and thought Kash was treated badly. Which would mean what? What would that mean, chat? That Kash was...
just the gateway charges.
Yeah.
I guarantee you there will be multiple charges coming down the pipeline. This suspect is alive, and he will face the fullest extent of the law.
No shit. No fucking shit. You go anywhere near the president and act like that, you're fucking going down. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, people are wondering if, in fact, there are terrorism charges coming as well. But I guess, Nicole, there are a lot of questions this morning about how it is possible that something like this could happen when you have the commander-in-chief, the president of the free world.
Why is he hiding behind his fucking wife? God damn, he is a loser. He's such a Nazi. Bro, he is such an evil Nazi. Look at this piece of shit. Look at this guy.
But I guess, Nicole, there are a lot of questions.
What kind of a man are you?
How it is possible that something like this could happen when you have the commander-in-chief, the president of the free world, in a ballroom, and somebody can actually get into the room right outside carrying a shotgun, a handgun, and all of those knives. How does that happen?
She almost said Hancock.
You know, it's quite alarming. Like President Trump's. And this suspect in particular, he's a graduate of Caltech University. He has a master's in computer science. This guy is extremely smart, okay?
Yes.
He graduated in mechanical engineering, but again, the U.S. Secret Service has a zero-fail mission. And what they did last night, it was a massive event with the President of the United States, many cabinet members,
they did their job.
And the press.
Yeah, they did fine. Everything was fine. Everyone's blowing it out of proportion. Like, oh my God. And yeah, there was another attempt on their life as stated by the defendant here. But like, nothing happened that warrants like, oh, we got to build the fucking ballroom that has shutters that shut that are thick like glass.
Over 2,000 attendees based on what I understood.
Glass.
Right.
This individual, he rushed the magnetometer, but I'll tell you, the Secret Service acted swiftly and decisively. And that agent, they exchanged fire and he took a round to his ballistic vest. We are so grateful that he is alive. This is what law enforcement does every single day. They are willing to put their lives on the line for us and for President
shit,
Trump.
that's their
and to keep
fucking
us
job.
safe.
Yeah.
But again, this venue, this hotel, Maria.
Yeah. And not kill our citizens is what they're supposed to do, but they kill us all the time, so.
Extremely difficult to protect that. It's a very large location. It's a very vulnerable location because you have people staying in the hotel. The suspect himself was staying in the hotel.
Right.
So again, it can be very difficult to protect, but I guarantee you that there will be an after-action review. Maybe they'll discuss things such as widening the perimeter next time. And I do think that the ballroom is an extremely important piece to this puzzle.
Yeah.
Having the ballroom would put it in a much more secure location.
Absolutely. And why they are fighting him on this ballroom is just beyond anyone's understanding.
secure
But you made a
location.
good point in terms of Cole Allen's background. It's what the president said to me when I spoke with him on the phone this morning. He said, you know, have you ever seen the background of some of these assassins? They're geniuses. I mean, this person had a real resume in terms of his background, and that, I think, was what the president was saying. But his resolve is incredible. He sounded calm and very much in control this morning, and as he did last night when he gave that press conference about an hour after the incident.
I absolutely agree. President Trump is strong, he is solid, and he
Sure.
brought peace to the situation.
Yes.
He brought calm. I mean, it's
Right.
extremely rattling for those of us watching it on television, for those that were
Yeah.
present.
He
But I
brought
have one thing to
calm.
say. Isaiah 54:17, I'm a woman of faith.
He's
No
the reason
weapon
the
formed
person
against you
is
shall
there.
prosper.
What do
And
you
we have
mean
seen
he
this
brought
over and
calm?
over with President
His
Trump.
rhetoric
He has
makes
been
this
protected,
happen.
literally.
he has.
And we
The
know that it
fuck are
doesn't
you
always work
yapping
out that
about?
way, and we don't always understand why. But he has
Because
been
he's a
protected, and I do
racist, and
believe
no
that
one
he
likes
is exactly
racists.
right.
Yeah.
He
What?
is very impactful. If he was doing nothing, they wouldn't be coming after him.
Yeah.
And people are saying, why does this keep happening to President Trump? Well, we know because it's the fiery rhetoric from the left that incites people to act this way.
Right.
But it's also
No.
because he's doing things.
No, it's because he's a racist. And he's taking people's rights away. What do you mean? Are you stupid?
That no other president is willing to do. He's willing to make
Yeah.
those difficult choices.
That's right.
Whatever he has to do to protect
Yeah, he's willing to make those difficult choices to take away your rights. Yeah, she's right about that.
our country from, taking down Maduro
Yeah, when she says protect our country, she means protect Trump from you. From the threat inside.
to Iran, to all of these things. Only President Trump has
Yes.
been willing to step up to the line, and that makes him a
Yes.
target.
That's exactly
You
right.
go,
That is why he's the
girl.
target. Thank you so much,
Slay.
Nicole, former FBI agent Nicole Parker.
God, she's doing good. FBI agent now fucking spouting fucking lies on Fox News. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Doing good for yourself. Doing better than me.
Who did you vote for? Trump! The $1 million question. Trump.
Trump. Donald Trump.
The swing is because people want lower prices.
Like I said, these people right now that are saying they voted for Trump, they better be saying, like, come on, Donnie, they better be going, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Like, that's what I want to hear. Especially because I've been yapping about this for so long on the right side of history.
They probably believe that Trump would give them that.
Rent is expensive. Foods are going up.
5 years
Utility
now
bills
down
are up.
here.
And that's your hope, to see a little bit more of an affordable life?
Absolutely.
My name is Zoran Mamdani. I'm going to be running for mayor next year.
Wow.
Yes, yes, sir.
The dawn of Mayor Mamdani's campaign was going out to Fordham Road here in the Bronx and Hillside Avenue in Queens right after Trump got elected to find out why people in this very democratic city were so ticked off. And the answer they kept coming back to was affordability. Things are too expensive. Mayor Mamdani's back with me here. Joining us now, Christiane Spariazzo, a former Trump supporter.
He's now the
voter who
mayor.
supported the mayor. Sarah Bediako, whose daughter is in a pre-K class. The mayor and President Obama visited here in the Bronx last weekend. You might have seen pictures of that. Great to have you both here.
Thank you.
Christiane, let me start with you just because the sort of conceit of that video the mayor did was, if you looked at New York City returns, Trump got a lot more votes than you might have expected. You were a Republican, Trump supporter, Trump voter. What's sort of driven you in the direction that you are now in terms of voting for the mayor, and what are you looking for from him now?
Yeah, so like some of my background, I went to Siena College, double major in economics and political science with the goal of helping people in public policy and getting involved in government. I always had strong principles of conservative values of limited government, for example, not getting involved in foreign wars. So when I saw Trump campaign as a populist for the American people, saying we're going to lower inflation, we're going to support the American worker, and we won't get involved in foreign wars, that really attracted me to his campaign, which that was obviously all a lie, especially like right now, we're fighting a war in Iran.
Your politics have changed
you're saying
over time,
sorry.
but you know, this question of sort of prioritizing workers and bringing inflation down, like how much do you still think of that as a North Star for whether this mayor succeeds or not?
Well, like I really admire like you championing affordability, especially when it comes to housing, for instance. I live in a rent-stabilized apartment, so over the years in the story, I've seen more and more people get pushed out of the neighborhood because they can't afford the rent, especially immigrant families. And you're pro-union, I really support that.
One of the dynamics for this city, right? One of the challenges is there's lots of very rich people. There's a lot of people really struggling. And there's things you can do on the policy side. You can tax some of those rich folks and you can create services, universal pre-K for folks that are struggling.
This sounds great.
Yes, but also you want to build middle-class jobs, right? Like if it keeps going in that direction of a city of like Wall Street folks and billionaires and folks that are just like making minimum wage, that's a tough city to sustain. It's a tough city to sustain culturally, fiscally, financially.
He's correct.
How do you think about that, about building a middle class here that's independent of taxing the rich, paying for services?
I think that's at the heart of what we're looking to do, because what the middle class represents to so many, not just New Yorkers, but Americans, is stability. It's dignity. It's the ability to not just go out there and work, but also have somewhere to come home to at the end of the day and be able to rest on top of that. And
not need the government to subsidize you directly, right? Or not be depending on programs.
Well, I think the beauty of a public good is that it should be so good that everyone uses it, right? To me, I don't want public goods to be something that you only use if you don't have enough money in your pocket. The dream of New York City is in many ways the dream of the subway at its best, right? It's the fastest way to get around. Right. It doesn't matter how much money you have. That's how you get to where you're going.
Yes.
And that's what we want childcare to be.
Yes.
That's what we want so much of this city to be, so that working class New Yorkers are not worried about whether they can survive in this city, but actually, can they build a life in this city? That's what we want the answer to be.
The child care, your daughter, right, is in the child care. Got to meet the former president of the United States the other day.
Yes, that was a surprise, so thank you for bringing her. Yes, so she's in a child care right now, learning through play. It's a great place that she's at. I feel safe and comfortable, and I don't have to worry about her going to that class. I wish that they had it for 2K because I had to stay home for almost 2 years to care for her because childcare was so expensive. When I was researching at that time, it was almost 1K a week just for my child to go to a quality and safe childcare program.
And you're not alone in that. This is the story of so many parents who a good deal would be if they found $20,000 a year for childcare. That's a good deal in New York City. And this is not something that just affects working class New Yorkers or middle class New Yorkers. We have people making north of 6 figures for whom that is still going to have a huge impact on their ability to live in the city.
Christian has gone fully from CPAC to socialism. Chris Quinones here with us, who you might recognize, who was in, and I remember seeing you in that video when you said, $1 million question, and then you said, you're a Republican, you voted for Trump.
Thanks for the pitchforks.
No, are you going to fucking apologize, sir? Multitudes, and we welcome them all. Do you have a question for the mayor, or what are you looking for him to deliver on for you to become a convert or at least a supporter?
That's a full circle moment.
I'm a reasonable person. I mean, given what people think and say about Republicans, I don't parrot, I think for myself. Maybe I'm unique, maybe I'm not. I'll leave that for smarter people. What I would like to say is that I understand where you're coming from, what you want to provide for the people. And my personal belief, not that I'm going to parrot, but my personal belief is that if you're going to charge me a tax, I want you to show me something for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know how people feel about taxes, because people, feel differently about taxes. And that's a conversation for another time. But what I would say is, if you can show beyond any reasonable doubt that if this, whatever you're planning had to go to court, beyond any reasonable doubt, that any New Yorker on the street can say, you know what, I'm willing to pay that extra dollar.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big question, right? It's one of the highest tax jurisdictions in the country, right? New York City, just to be clear, it's got one of the highest municipal governments. It's not like this is a small government place. The question of like, are the services up to how much people are paying for them?
And I think it is something that I think about often, because as much as I think about public goods, I think about public excellence. Right? We don't want to try and convince a New Yorker in a conversation about the worth of something. We want to be able to prove it to them through what it is that we're delivering.
Like
and I think that's where it comes back to, is that
daycare.
the taxes that we're calling for on the wealthiest of the wealthy, the most profitable corporations of those that do business here in New York, they are ones that we would then use that revenue to transform the lives of every New Yorker.
God, Chris, why are you being so hard on him? He is dragging him to the right. That is fucked up. I actually don't like Chris now for the two questions he
This was an event dedicated to freedom of speech that was supposed to bring together members of both parties with members of the press.
Yeah.
And in a certain way.
Which means, sir, I can call you a Nazi. And I can say that you're a fascist. Just like you told Mom Don, he could say that as well. It's fine.
It did.
That's freedom of fucking speech, bitch.
Because the fact that they just unified, I saw a room that was just totally unified. It was in one way very beautiful.
No shit. Okay.
For a moment, some thought there might be a reset. In the hours following...
Oh, yeah. We're not going to fucking be unified around some shooter coming in. Oh, yeah. We're going to be like, yeah, woohoo! We're so happy that the shooter came in. It was a leftist. We're so happy it's a leftist. And it came
the shooting at Saturday's White House Correspondents' Dinner.
He thinks this is a fucking brutal, bloody team sport.
Trump struck a somewhat somber tone. But then within 24 hours, Trump reverted back to usual form, and any restraint seemed short-lived. He was back in a combative posture by Sunday. In an interview with CBS 60 Minutes,
I'm not a pedophile.
Trump repeatedly attacked the anchor Norah O'Donnell personally, and the media more broadly, for the act of asking straightforward questions about the shooting suspect.
He writes this, quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this: I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people. You should be ashamed of yourself reading that. You're a disgrace. But go ahead, let's finish the interview.
The other thing that he wrote in
You're disgraceful. I'm not a king. What I am, if I was a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you. We have some great people in the press, some very fair people, and people that are just on my side. But for the most part, it's a very liberal or very progressive, let's use the word liberal press.
Liberal press.
You'll recall that in the days leading up to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the reporting suggested Trump had already planned to lash out against the press. According to the Daily Beast, quote, Donald Trump will launch a revenge attack on the White House media when he confronts them in person at a Washington dinner on Saturday night, then flee before there can be revenge. The event was, of course, evacuated before any such speech could take place. In his remarks following that evacuation, Trump admitted he had planned to be inappropriate.
Oh, you think it was too? Oh, yeah, of course. Right.
And rough.
I was all set to really rip it.
We love to have our dangerous minorities on the streets.
And I said to my people, this would be the most inappropriate speech ever made if I said one. So I'll have to save it. I don't know if I could ever be as rough as I was going to be tonight.
I was going to be rough.
And Trump already announced.
When he uses the word rough, we know. Got to go in full-throated.
Saying that he wants to reschedule the event, though organizers aren't so sure that's going to be possible. Earlier today, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt blamed Democrats and the media.
This political violence stems from a systemic demonization of him and his supporters by commentators, yes, by elected members of the Democrat Party, and even some in the media.
Okay, sure.
Missing from that press conference, any moment of self-reflection from the press secretary serving a president who has described political opponents as garbage, scum, demonic, animals, the enemy within, and low IQ, whose election-related conspiracy theories have led to death threats against election workers.
Some would say.
Whose administration pushed rumors that Haitians were eating cats and dogs. This as Trump is now reviving his feud with late-night host Jimmy Kimmel, calling for ABC to fire Jimmy Kimmel over a segment that aired Thursday night.
No, they
in
showed
which
my
Kimmel
bald
staged
spot.
a parody White House Correspondents' Dinner, roasting the president and the
Dude, you can actually see his bald spot there.
administration, as comedians have done at past events. Here's the portion that Trump and the First Lady seem to be referring to.
Our First Lady Melania is here. Look at.
There's going to be.
Well, it's so beautiful. Mrs. Trump, you have a glow like an expectant widow. You know, Melania's birthday is on Sunday. That's right. She's planning to celebrate at home the same way she always does, looking out a window and whispering, "What have I done?"
That joke was obviously written and performed before the events of Saturday night, but it's now landing, of course, in a very different political and social environment. Trump calling for ABC and Disney to immediately fire Kimmel, calling the segment, quote, far beyond the pale.
This so-called White House press secretary wants to lecture America and lecture us about civility. Get lost. Clean up your own house.
You get lost.
Before you have anything to say to us about the language that we use.
What?
That was Democratic leader
You
Hakeem
suck.
Jeffries responding to Caroline Leavitt's criticism.
You haven't pushed back. I haven't heard. This is the first I've heard from you in 2 months. What do you mean?
After Saturday's shooting. And joining me now is David Folkenflik, media correspondent for NPR, and Molly Jong-Fast, contributing opinion writer with the New York Times and MS Now political analyst. It's great to have both of you guys. So Molly,
Bitch,
I
if
want
you're
to
not
start
hitting
with
my
you.
timeline.
You were at the dinner for part of that evening.
You aren't relevant.
But you weren't there when the shooting unfolded.
I'm a fucking news hound, right? I do this every fucking day. I watch other shows.
But you have a sense of the room, the history of this event, the tension, of course, leading up to that night. When you see the president's rhetoric that we've seen, and there have been shifts in it just in the past 48 hours, what is the impression that you are left with here? Is there a serious
The way it is, man. People don't realize how relevant this fucking shit is now.
grappling with the nature of political violence and everyone's role in it right now?
Well, I think there are two problems that are separate. One is the problem of the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is at best looks very, the optics on it are pretty
irony,
terrible, and
funny.
they always have been pretty dicey. The idea that you have members of the government and journalists and, and lobbyists and all sorts of DC swamp all together in a room, very dressed up. And then I think it's worth realizing, like, we are in a very heightened moment in American political life. And people are mad. But people are mad at journalists and politicians and everyone. And so
they're good for yelling at and talking over and guiding my timeline and my story.
I think it's important to sort of,
because like you got to have something to bounce off of, because I figure like that's what this is. You don't want to have to think about this. You want someone to tell you some shit that you trust.
Pull back and say none of this is happening in a vacuum.
Not this bullshit like fair and balanced fucking the extreme toads, they go over and watch Asmongold, right? Sure.
The I think that the anger that the American people have towards politicians is also sort of spilling out on journalists, and why it's so important that things like the White House.
I mean, if you like hearing your streamers say, yeah, I really like it when they kill children, that's fine.
Correspondence dinner probably don't happen anymore, and that we raise that money for those scholarships in other ways.
I mean, Molly Jong-Fast can be relevant and is relevant in some ways, but you're right. It's like no one who's over 30 cares about who this fucking person is, right?
Because I think that as much, our job is to cover these people. And at this moment, it really needs to be as clean as possible. And I think that even just the mere optics of the dinner are so distracting. And I think they really undermine the fundamental premise of what we're supposed to be doing.
I understand. You and I talked yesterday when I think so many people were still in shock. I was sitting with Eugene in our DC bureau, who was there and who also has.
If you search news right now, there's like, you think there would be more people on Twitch doing this, but I'm like number 6.
Poured so much of himself into planning this dinner, into mentoring young journalists, into the incredible things that this dinner is supposed to represent, that people want it to be. But there is this tension right now between what we want it to be, what it traditionally has felt like, and just the reality of the moment that we're all living in. David, for you, how have you processed the imagery?
My God, people are crawling out. It's upstairs in the other room. You could even hear the shots were quite a ways away and upstairs. You could tell they definitely weren't close because none of the mics picked it up. Like, very good. Yeah, Twitch isn't dying. I disagree.
The symbolism of that night. One of the things Molly pointed out to me yesterday.
The reason Twitch isn't dying is because it has some TOS at least, whereas those other places don't. Like, Chud the Builder. Are you kidding me?
Today was just that there is the gratitude, of course, everyone is safe, but there is also the reality, too, that we as journalists, we've covered so many shootings at which poor school children in Uvalde didn't have Secret Service people leaping over tables to rescue them. And we
so how come
our
you're
colleagues
not in the
did.
Rumble chat then?
Because
the chat's irrelevant.
You see and
mostly
you experience
bots.
And you understand something like this. What
you
obligation
think Twitch has
do
a
we
bot
have
problem?
As
go to Rumble
as an industry,
or
as a
Kick,
profession,
for fuck's sake.
moving forward?
Well, there's a lot of jumbled emotions. I don't think we have to create a hierarchy of tragedies to acknowledge both the
and if you don't have a clip farming company working for you, you're not going to get fucking noticed.
terrible anguish one feels, even unrelated to what happened to folks at.
I consider Rumble like eating street food in Istanbul at some cart that you shouldn't eat at. And then Kick is like going to a really good Mexican restaurant and eating something you shouldn't eat. And then Twitch is like the fancy restaurant. Yeah.
Uvalde or at other school shootings or other mass shootings as well.
And I'm speaking specifically of having to deal with bullshit. Like racism. Blatant racism.
I was acknowledging the terror and the terribleness of what occurred on Saturday night. I was not present.
I'm happy that shit's banned here. Too much freedom is not good. Like, I am a freedom guy. I am like, yeah, whatever, but intention is my point. Again, saying fuck is one thing. Saying fuck and a certain other thing can get me in trouble. I can say fuck the President of the United States of America. But I can't say I would like to K-word the President of the United States of America, because then I would be put in jail. And that is saying things under context, right? Now, motherfuckers are going to yell at you and they'll be like, well, freedom, blah, 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 freedom of speech, blah, blah. Yeah, under context, it's fine. But under no context do I want to see someone being called the N-word who's a black person by another white person. I don't fucking care. I don't want to see that. Fuck you. You're a fucking idiot. That's not content. Know what I'm saying? The content will be that guy getting his ass kicked. And he knows that's what everyone thinks is going to happen, and it never happens. Because this motherfucker's going around in a parking lot with a gun strapped on him in a state where they have stand your ground laws. And he knows he can shoot anyone he wants without repercussion. N-bombs fly from white people? Or, I mean, you can't tell if someone's black or white.
I don't think we've seen the president.
What do you mean? If N-bombs are flying, maybe they're coming from someone who's black. And they're calling them the derogatory term for N-bomb. Because Thomas Sowell is a piece of shit. Yeah. Doesn't matter his fucking color. He's a fucking loser. But yeah, there you go. That's going to come from some old school guys.
Fully grapple with.
I mean, you can't see that? Despite the name, you can't see how what he's doing is like just wrong. Seriously.
With what it is to.
Like you're fooled by Thomas Sowell's bullshit rhetoric because it's what it is. Like there's no reason to even debate Thomas Sowell. You know what I mean? It's more like he's the anomaly. He's like the pastor because you just don't debate the pastor, right? You know what I mean? Thomas Sowell's not correct about anything, bro. Seriously. Gotta unlearn that one.
Could be engaged in political rhetoric, which is in some ways
nobody wants to hear the truth because it isn't
or
the
affirming
truth.
the idea of violence, or at least violent political rhetoric as part of everyday norm in public life. I think there is something to what Molly's talking about with the question of this very.
Like, I don't even think you got to be a goddamn leftist to think that Thomas Sowell's a piece of shit. Like, I think you could probably be a principled Republican and think that he was a piece of shit as well. Like a Rand Paul kind of guy.
This very event,
libertarian maybe.
I haven't gone in over 2 decades.
Thomas
I don't
Sowell,
blame
he's
those
a piece
who
of
do.
shit.
I think it can be useful as well as fun, but I do think that there's a time where there's a lack of trust in the elites in American society. Sometimes so-called elites, sometimes actually, but powerful figures in media and commerce and business and entertainment and politics, the highest level of politics altogether on this night. One was.
Look, when people have a certain amount of fame and they have a certain amount of followers and they, you and me, some random chatters and a random streamer on fucking Twitch can, say Thomas Sowell and both of us know immediately what, who the fucking we're talking about. What they say matters, right? Obviously, because you're coming and saying, well, I believe in what he says and, I think it's right. Whatever. That's fine. But my opinion of that is that he is like a cult. The way that he operates is cultish. Okay, number one. So there's my number one flare going off for that motherfucker. All right. Like you're either in the Thomas Sowell cult or you're out of it. And there's a reason for that.
I was desperately hoping.
It's like you're either in the Nick Fuentes cult or you're out of it. You know what I'm saying? It's the same kind of thing. Am I wrong? Like it's a fucking bubble to be bubbled in, and I don't believe you're really in it.
And gratifying.
Well, Thomas Sowell is very famous for being
that there would be
wrong.
no actual violent acts occurred, and the one officer
Most people will point to him because he's been out there yapping, and Walter Williams, whatever. Like, who
was
cares?
shot was protected by his protective gear, as we understand.
Okay.
But this is a moment where I think it would be useful for rhetoric to be ratcheted down in all parts, and yet the idea that somehow some columnist somewhere, some blogger, somebody on Substack, somebody on cable news, on any of the networks, whatever flavor or variety you like, is responsible for this seems to me to be wide of the mark. I just think that there's far.
I think you've been coming to my chat for 2 years now, by the way. I definitely expected your brain to grow between now and then. So I'm a bit disappointed when you're coming at me and saying that Thomas Sowell's right. Still.
Too much violent political rhetoric in public life right now.
It's fine.
And I think it's become very accepted in kind of the conversational vernacular of podcasting and blogging and posting online and, getting things viral on TikTok and everywhere else. And at the same time, you've seen that filter down from the top and top echelons of government. And I think that I don't know that I blame that for what occurred Saturday night, but I sure would feel.
I mean, but look, I remember this fucker now because he's really old. Okay. Yes. Like, that's like his spiritual successor, in some ways.
A lot more
that is kind of what fucking Thomas Sowell's spouting.
If the people in prominent positions in all of these institutions would behave themselves in a way one would want to see emulated rather than avoided.
As an anarchist
well, speaking of some of those implications and people in prominent positions, Molly, I want you to listen to some of Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche's remarks earlier, implying the reporters critical of the president may have a role here in all of this.
Many people in this room, if we're going to be honest about it, have done it as well. They're just as guilty as a lot of people on X. When you have reporters, when you have media just being.
There's another guy that shows up, has the same name, but he's a white guy, and he lived to be like 100. He was like Confederate.
Overly critical and calling the president horrible names for no reason and without evidence, without proof, it shouldn't surprise us that this type of rhetoric takes place.
Molly, are the people in that room, the reporters we know and we work with, are they just as guilty as a lot of people on X? I mean, we're at the very beginning of this investigation in the first place.
I mean, there are so many problems here. I mean, one is that we do have a First Amendment, and the idea that speech is somehow violence is, pretty nutty. And remember, we're in a country that has a major mass shooting and gun problem. So,
yeah, and this is the other problem with that. The whole idea of I don't see color.
That would be where I would start if I wanted to stop violence. That seems like a very easy one. But the second thing I would say is he is standing next to a woman who was a host on Fox News. Okay. And there are numerous men.
There was 2,000 of the best press and the most important 6 people in the world in succession right now in that building. And you know what happened? Some crazy smart guy who had plenty of time to plan obviously wasn't very serious about killing people because he came in like fucking crazy guy and didn't do nothing. They stopped him. It worked. He was upstairs in another room. Everyone was fine. Everyone overreacted. And now everyone's overreacting again. Except for the fact that, of course, there was a crazy guy. And so what's the reason for that? Everyone's like, well, it's the left.
Members in this administration.
The left is not violent. Okay? Except for crazy people like this guy. They're not going to find any undercover, paid operative bullshit. This isn't what this is about. It's not how we operate. There's no left organization The closest thing to organization is the DSA. I mean, that's the closest thing we have. And none of those people are violent folk. Are you fucking kidding me?
Who have been on Fox News.
You're absolutely delusional if you think that the left is violent at this point. I would be happy to admit if the left was violent. Okay, when it is. I will be happy to admit when the left, my side, finally comes around and goes, we're going to be fucking violent. All right? Because the thing is, you'll probably know it. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't going to just be some random bro. If there was an organized left, like they keep talking about, God, I wish there was. A non-violent organized left, of course. But like, that was supposedly violent, it would be doing a lot. It would be doing a lot more than what it's doing. We're fucking pretty creative about what we think. You know, like, we're not going to just go some random stupid shit and think we're like in a COD game. We're not stupid. Like, I don't get this framing. No one should believe this. Period. No one should believe the fact that the left is dangerous and violent. There's none violence being had for any reason. Yes, we say things like the president is a piece of shit because he is. We call him a fascist. But why does that make people angry at him if they hear that he's a fascist when they hear the truth? They don't need to hear it from us. They can see it themselves. Because we're saying it doesn't mean that other people aren't seeing it. You see a deer in the woods and someone goes deer and you're like, well, I don't see a deer. What are you talking about? Why are you calling that tree over there a fucking a deer? It's not a deer. And you're looking at a deer and you're both standing there looking at a deer. And you're like, well, I guess I'm going to be a deer now. Like, the analogy isn't very good, but my point is like, you can see a fascist when you can see one. Calling them a fascist isn't going to cause the person to get mad. All right? That's not how it works. Affirming someone's belief is just going to affirm their belief. That's all it's going to do. Whether they choose to do with it and go crazy nut job and run around with guns and kill people, that's a whole different level. No one's saying that on the left. No one's spouting that kind of rhetoric. That rhetoric is coming from the right. There is rhetoric like that coming from the right. And none of these people talk about it.
Leanne,
of course, MSN
you were there.
does. MS Now does.
Tell me what happened.
Yeah, I was right across the table from Dylan. You know, Katie, at first, of course, it was confusion. You hear loud thumps, didn't know what they were. I thought that was normal. And then you just see a sea of people rushing to get under their tables. You see Secret Service running down the aisles, climbing on the dais, rushing away the president and the vice president.
Right.
And so it was chaos at the beginning with a lot of confusion. And in getting back to your point, in moments like that, a lot of misinformation and a lot of questions of what happened start to develop, especially online, by people who weren't in the room.
Bro, he had armed security guards. He had actual people with AKs ready to go. What do you mean nothing was going to happen?
So, you know, it was definitely a moment that was not necessarily expected for that night specifically, but perhaps should have been as these threats of political violence just continue, Katie.
There's also a certain, well, there's twofold here. There's a question I want to ask Dylan about an experience he had right afterwards. But Sam, I first want to talk to you about...
what is she alluding to?
Maybe the desire for people to want to believe that this is staged, to want to believe that these things aren't really happening, or there's some ulterior motive at hand. Everything's a cover-up for the Epstein files. This is just another version of a cover-up. This one to distract from the Iran war, or the economy, or sagging poll numbers. Is part of this fueled by just what people want?
Some of that's true.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, right? You don't want to confront uncomfortable truths in certain cases. It's a lot easier
Why
to
they got
just
this
sort of
guy
duck
on?
the idea that
Why is Sam on here?
I don't know, your
He's a
approximate
he's a
political
Republican.
ideology or some online source produced something. I'm not saying this specifically. And therefore you just say, well, it's got to be actually the opposite. It's got to be all conspiracy. This, we see it in this case. You see it most recently, like for instance, a good example of this is the J6 pipe bombing situation, where forever it was, the right wing was saying, well, this must have been a false flag plant designed to get law enforcement into the crowd to frame these J6ers. And it turns out the guy was a Trump voter who wanted to create chaos that day. And so, it is a way to avert having to take some blame in both directions. And then I would just add to your point, the internet's
Take
not
some
helping
blame
here,
in both
right?
directions.
I don't know if you were just scrolling on Twitter in the aftermath of this on Saturday night, but it was a cesspool. It really was.
Where is the
For You
negative
stuff
rhetoric?
was just basically all conspiracies and political attacks and very little actual credible information. And our algorithms are rewarding irresponsible behavior in a lot of cases.
He's right about
and
that.
that feeds this disinformation
But still.
environment. And in this case, in these acute moments, it's a frenzy, really.
Sam, it's not even just the internet. I mean, I saw that. What struck me most, because there's a part of you that can just say, well, that's the internet, and who knows, it's bots, and it's a corner of the country. I was texting with my friends, very smart people, very educated, and they were questioning it. And they were talking to me, a journalist. My husband was in the room, and I was telling them what happened, and they were still questioning it and doubting it.
Because he'll
We've
do
gone
anything.
From being a a critical country to a skeptical country, and now to a country of denialists.
And it's your fault,
I
too.
think part of it is this
MSN
feeling
now. It's
of
your
being out
fault.
of control. Like the world is moving so fast, so much is happening.
Yeah, you're right. The world's moving too fast for MS now. And you fucked up and you dropped the ball and you went all libbed out and you went all right instead of going left, and you're still doing it.
Donald Trump or politics.
That's why Trump is right. You're irrelevant. But where Trump's wrong is that all this news is irrelevant, including Trump is irrelevant in some ways. You know what I mean? He's only relevant until he's not, of course.
AI, all this stuff is happening to us, not with our
His ilk
input or
is irrelevant
support,
at this
and
point.
it's
What I
hard to
mean.
keep up.
Yeah, I don't
Dying
disagree with
breed.
that. I think normally well-grounded people are sort of getting taken away with some of the stuff. I think if you just look in the broader media ecosystem, it probably does feed that. And the internet is, of course, a component of that, but it's not to blame for everything. And I do think a lot of it is just people feeling like they need answers, or that the things that are happening in their lives can only be explained through sort of the nefarious forces operating in the
because
dark.
gas
and
is
that we're just not
$6
really
plus a
grasping the whole
gallon,
picture.
bitch.
Either way, it's pretty dark. It's uncomfortable, and it makes it really hard for people who are
I
committed
thought I had
to
a raise
trying to
this
find
year.
fact and
Nope,
truth
making
to
less
come-
money.
to break through that ecosystem. Because you're right, it's not just whack jobs on the internet or people who spend all day on their computers. It's people who normally otherwise would not believe this stuff.
Yeah. It's a crisis of institutional trust, both on the federal government scale, but also with journalists and media. And Dylan, I know you cover this.
Okay.
The experience that you talked
Be
about
self-aware about
online
that, at least.
of going to a bar in D.C. right after this, I just thought was shocking, because it says a lot about where we are as a country when something big happens. Tell me what happened.
Yeah,
Why is that
sure.
shocking?
Look, I think all four of us on this panel have done our fair share of time in Washington, and we know that if you're in a bar in downtown Washington, historically, there's usually one television tuned to CNN or Fox News or MS Now. And
Is
we
there?
went, I think searching for some terra firma after leaving the Hilton. Some colleagues went down to one of these bars and asked if we could change the channel to watch the news so we could see the president's press conference. Didn't seem like too big of an ask in light of a shooter attempting to enter a room with not only the president and the vice president, but many of the most powerful cabinet members, business executives, dignitaries,
gonna complain
and
that they
like the
wouldn't let
leading
him change the channel?
journalists, political journalists in the country.
Use your
we got
t-
it for
use
all
your
2
phone,
minutes before
bitch.
we were informed that you actually couldn't. There was a rule in the restaurant against watching political content. And by the way, over the course of the last 24 hours, I have heard from people who said they've heard that same rule in other bars, in airport lounges. that people just don't want to show political content.
Of
and
course.
It certainly didn't seem like anyone in that room really wanted to watch the president of the United States address what was very likely an attempted assassination against him. And I just thought, like, the Hilton, it's known in
Because
DC
it's
as the Hinckley
fake.
Hilton because, of course, it's the same place back in 1981 where
Why are
Hinckley
they showing
fired
the
shots
blurred
at
out
Reagan.
version of that?
And I have to imagine that back in
That's
the
fucking
day,
AI, by
CNN,
the
which
way.
had just been founded, and the broadcast networks, all of which broke into special coverage, that was wall to wall across the city, and that it was a shared moment. And one thing that is happening amid the lack of trust and faith in institutions that you're talking about,
Bro,
as well
most
as the
people can't even get
democratization
NBC unless they have
of
a
media
subscription.
online,
What are
which
you
has also
talking
led to a
about?
fragmentation of media, which is part and parcel of a fragmentation of culture, is that we are just tuning out the news. And news has never been more intense. Political violence has never been more intense. Geopolitics has never been more intense. The changes in technology have never been more intense.
What are you talking
and
about,
yet,
bro?
It seems like that sort of
Shut up.
monoculture feeling where we can all come together and be
I
like,
hate
hey,
this guy, actually.
it's pretty crazy that a shooter just got tackled at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's something we all experienced on Saturday night. I don't think it's something that by and large the rest of the country took a lot of time to watch or think about.
We
part of
have
it is
school
also,
shooters.
just how frequently
I used to send my
giant
kids to
stories
school and go,
happen.
okay,
And
this could be
Leanne,
the
you can
day.
attest to this. You've been
I'm not gonna
covering
lie.
this version of politics now, and all of us have since Donald Trump took the stage. It predates him, but we can focus on just the last 11 years.
fact that as a dad, you're
there's a
having that
giant
thought.
story. A giant story that we would have taken
Fuck
6 months to cover
all the way
every
off,
other
both of
week.
you guys.
Venezuela or war in Iran, Epstein files, losing access to the Obamacare subsidies. I mean, there are these giant stories that would have sustained a news cycle for weeks, months on end. And instead now they're happening every other week. There's a certain, you can't keep up with it. It's all so noisy that you can't hear
Why?
any one thing any longer. And
Can
so
you guys
it's
talk
very
about
easy
why, please?
to just tune it all out.
Yeah, the news cycle moves so quickly, Katie, obviously, that what's interesting is it's not even impacting the public, where it's interesting to see what actually breaks through, because there are so many news stories, the stuff that trickles down that actually reaches the consciousness. It's fascinating talking to political operatives even about the war in Iran. We were 3-4 weeks in, and operatives on the right and the left, Democrats and Republicans, they were saying that it hasn't fully yet reached the consciousness of the public. And so they're still watching the polling very, very carefully, but that it took so long for it to really break through, for people to understand what was happening. And so that's just one example of
What's
a
happening? That there's a
major
war,
news story
period?
that in the noise was even hard for people to understand and comprehend and to really tune into, because there is so much. Now, this is part of the president's strategy from a logistical standpoint. Yes, it's cultural. Yes, we don't have a lot of attention span, but also from a tactical standpoint, the president, to flood the zone is something that the White House does very effectively and very purposefully in order to make it hard for people to understand what's happening. And even members of Congress can't even keep up with their staffs.
I mean, and
Hell no, bro. I'm not watching that. No. No. Sorry.
Leanne, you were
No.
there. Tell me what happened.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Kennedy, Harold Ford Jr., Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's
Maybe
5 o'clock
another
in New York
day,
City,
but not
and this
today.
is The Five.
Too slow.
Brand new federal charges filed against a suspected gunman in the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting.
I see
Cole
what you want to
Allen,
go
a
past,
31-year-old teacher and engineer from California, is now charged with attempting to assassinate the president. That's a crime that could bring him life in prison. He's also facing 2 other firearms charges. The shooting now marks the 3rd attempt on Trump's life in just 3 years. Here's D.C. Attorney Jeanine Pirro outlining how the suspect's manifesto proved he was targeting the president.
Are you kidding me?
Make no mistake, this was an attempted assassination of the President of the United States, with the defendant making clear what his intent was. And that intent
Why is she saying make no mistake?
was to bring down as many of the high-ranking cabinet officials as he could. This is the kind of situation that we cannot tolerate. He says, I am targeting the administration officials. They are my targets, and I'm prioritizing from the top down, the highest ranking from the lowest.
Except
and
for Kash
I will not
Patel.
hesitate to get involved in any kind of encounter with anyone who blocks me from the president.
Okay.
Despite the terror, President Trump
Except
telling 60
if
Minutes
Kash
how he
steps
wanted the
up,
show
I
to
won't
go
get in his
on,
way.
even
I'll
fighting
stop.
Secret Service to let him speak at the dinner.
I wanted to see what was happening, and I wasn't making it that easy for him. I wanted to see what was going on. And by that time, we started to realize maybe it was a bad problem. Some of these people, they may be crazy, but they're not stupid, and they figure things out. He ran 45 yards, they say, and he just went to it, and then, boom, he popped through it. I mean, he ran like, I think the NFL should sign him up. He was fast. When you look at it on tape, it's almost like a blur.
He had attended a No Kings protest in California.
No Kings, yeah.
What did security tell you about
Well,
what
see,
may have been his motives?
The reason you have people like that is you have people doing no kings. I'm not a king. What I am, if I was a king, I wouldn't be dealing with you.
Huh?
Much to
I'm
get
not a king.
to. Jesse, let's start with you. Your reaction, your thoughts as to what happens now. We have one charge.
Why?
There might be additional charges at the moment, but the president wanted the dinner
There
to go
might be
on.
additional
He was
charges,
overruled by
yes.
Secret Service. He really had, I think his instincts were correct to try to not let somebody like this win.
What makes it so dangerous is these assassins are smarter. These aren't like low IQ.
They're getting smarter. These leftists, they're so smart. He's not that smart. At least not at killing anyway.
Lunatics. If you look at the people who have targeted the president and other Republicans, it's not like they're hearing voices and are disassociated from reality. These are well-educated people
I wonder
that
why.
are politically involved. This was a Kamala Harris donor. He was a No Kings protester. And the things he was saying in the manifesto are online, indistinguishable from what you hear in Congress or, I don't know, cable. So there are millions, tens of millions of people just like this guy. And he was highly motivated. He traveled across.
What is he trying to say?
The country to kill. Well, who else did that? The guy who tried to kill Kavanaugh and Ryan Ruth. And you read the manifesto, and the motive is clear. And then you hear Barack Obama come out and you say, well, while the motive remains unclear, what? It's like Barack's a part of the cover-up. And the media is still trying to cover it up. They're saying, you know, violence on both sides, you do lower the temperature. The violence is really going, for the most part, in one direction. You got Trump 3 times. You got Kirk. You got Kavanaugh. You got Scalise. Rand Paul's neighbor cracked his ribs. There was just another guy they had to shoot down by Secret Service because he tried to bust into Mar-a-Lago with a shotgun. It looks like the Democratic Party has become a violent revolution.
Wait.
Rand Paul's neighbor cracked violence on both sides. You do lower the temperature. The violence is really going, for the most part, in one direction.
For the most part.
You got Trump 3 times. You got Kirk. You got Kavanaugh. You got Scalise.
Brother in Christ, sir. What?
you got Kavanaugh, you got Scalise.
Because someone is attacked and they're the president and they're Republican, for example, or MAGA, and they were just attacked, automatically that person is on the other team, even if they're on your team? What?
Rand Paul's neighbor cracked his ribs. There was just another guy they had to shoot down by Secret Service because he tried to bust into Mar-a-Lago with a shotgun.
Another guy. Yeah.
It looks like the Democratic Party has become a violent revolution.
Yeah. That was MAGA.
Revolutionary movement. It's not just the drumbeat of hate. You look at the streets, you look at BLM, you look at Antifa, you look at this anti-ICE
Where's
stuff.
BLM? Where's
Torching
Antifa?
Teslas.
Where?
They had to throw down.
What? There's so many Teslas on fire right now. What are you talking about, old man?
A senator for trying to lunge at a cabinet secretary. They had to kick out a congressman who was screaming his face off, brandishing a cane at the president at the State of the Union. So why are these people so angry? It's because Trump keeps kicking their butt and they can't do anything about it. And he's pursuing an ambitious America First agenda. So because they're powerless, that what they're doing is inspiring their base to violently overthrow the government. And they're angrier more than ever because Trump responded with class. I would not have been able to do that, Dana. He got out there in a tux and didn't point fingers. He came out and said, listen, it was a night of love. We were all coming together, First Amendment, and this is why we need the ballroom. You'd think the media, after their own lives were in danger Saturday night, would maybe tell everybody, maybe get off the warpath, maybe police the Democrats for saying Trump's a dictator. They probably won't. So.
Well, he's even saying, like, calling him a dictator is like the biggest insult ever that makes all the hounds come for him. Excuse me? There's none leftists that are going to hear, oh, Trump's a dictator, Avi. Oh, I didn't know that. And now I feel violent because this dumb person said that Trump's a dictator, and oopsie, I didn't know that, and now all of a sudden my anger meter has gone from 0 to 2,000, and I need to go kill someone. What kind of reasoning is that? This is literally childish thinking. Literally. Like, whoever wrote this has never grown up.
The only thing we can do is shut them down.
Kennedy, I think one of the scary things, too, is that...
Shut them down. The only thing they know is violence. He sounds like Netanyahu. Wow, that's actually bad.
We keep having these scenarios, and that, well, thank goodness it wasn't worse. But how much more security could we have had at this place? Do you think that the...
Bro, we had fine security. They got him. Look at him. He didn't even... He tried to shoot one person who had a bulletproof vest on. Okay, whatever.
They call it a hot wash investigation will be enough to make significant changes, or are these types of events no longer possible?
So I just assumed, like you, I've been at this dinner. I think this is the fourth administration where I've seen the president at this event. And we've also been when the president hasn't been in attendance. Security is always lighter when the president is not there. I assume because this is the first one President Trump has attended, security would be so much more intense. I was told the Hilton was going to shut down at 2 o'clock unless you had a ticket, a pass, or a hotel key. We booked a room at 3 at the Hilton on Saturday.
Hello.
Had no problem getting in there. You know, the security was very lax in the lobby. And, you know, like Bill Maloogian and others, I was shocked that we could get down the escalators with our guests who didn't have tickets, get them into various parties. And
so none of these people will you hear. None of them will say that the ballroom is secure itself, which has extra doors and security around it. And the guy was never even close to that area.
You know, it wasn't until
so
we
dumb.
went through the magnetometers at the very end of the security protocol, which was really the only checkpoint. And, you know, again, no ID, nothing like that. And I was shocked that there was no bulletproof glass in front of the dais, because I assumed when I walked into the ballroom, that was the first thing that I looked for. And that kind of surprised me, given the number of cabinet secretaries,
looking
the
for
2,500
assassins.
people who were in that room, and the
People are
high
insane.
stakes.
They're the
not
ones
only
that are
with
insane.
the
Because they
failed
do
assassin-
know. They do know their rhetoric is what's causing this. And they're deflecting. And that's why they're actually scared. So if she was actually thinking, oh, I wonder where the shots are going to come from. The fuck?
assassination attempts, but
Did
also
she just give something
the
away?
war with Iran. And, you know, the president
almost
is
gave
under
the
an
ghost up
ongoing
there, didn't
fatwa
she?
from Iran. So that was all kind of surprising.
Huh?
The thing that was not surprising was, you know, I was 2 tables away from the door when we heard the gunshots. And then when the Secret Service agents came through the doors, we knew exactly. That was the only unsurprising thing. We knew exactly what was happening in that moment. And everyone dove under the tables. I was next to the MS Now tables. They all dove under their tables. Kash Patel was at my table. He made sure that all the women at the table were taken care of.
All right.
And, you know, there was so much uncertainty
No,
in
he
that
didn't.
moment because
He
we weren't
sat
told
there like,
anything. All the press was in the room, and we couldn't get any information from the outside. And there
Kash
was
Patel wasn't
a
taking care
lot
of
of
anyone.
competing information as to what actually happened to
Loser.
the shooter. It was Jimmy Fallon's executive producer who told us that the shooter had been apprehended and not shot and not killed.
Can I just ask you one quick question? Had you ever been in a situation where you heard gunshots like that close?
Yes.
Okay. I have not, so I'm. We'll maybe talk in the
Yes, it was. So I shoot firearms myself. I've been to many gun ranges.
So you knew.
And yes, and you know the difference between like a banging dumpster lid. We did hear plates falling because it was obviously a chaotic moment, but the rapid succession of 5 or 6 gunshots was unmistakable.
Harold, do you want to address any of the concerns about left-wing violence?
No, it's good to be with everybody.
Would you like to?
Well, I'll tell you.
Have the floor.
What I do want to address is, first off, I was pleased to see first of all, I'm pleased that no one was harmed, no one was hurt.
Left-wing violence.
The
Where?
police officer, the law enforcement officer.
Because this guy was a
apparently
fucking
has
lib.
gone home, and
Because
I
he's a
trust
fucking
he's
lib.
with his family and will hopefully find his way back to work soon. 2, I was pleased to see the president that night at the White House call for unity.
Dude, he's a griped up lib. I mean, that's fine. He likes guns. There's plenty of those guys. I know a lot of them. What do you mean? He just rationalized somehow in his head that he needed to do that. Perfectly reasonable decision, right? No, I'm kidding. It's like, what the fuck? Obviously, he wasn't right in the head. Calling him a left... Like I said, if there was some kind of organization and there was some kind of like 2 people doing this or 3 or 4 people, like that would be a leftist plot. Like no one's going to try to one-man this kind of thing. That's what I'm trying to get at. I was trying to say it earlier. Like if there was really this leftist organization called Antifa, quote unquote, and they were they're trying to trump this up. It's like they're trying to make the seed, make the hay for this. Something that doesn't exist. I'm telling you, there's no leftist violence that means anything. Even if this guy is a lib and liked MSNBC and voted for Kamala, he definitely doesn't represent the left then, the true left, and not Cenk Uyghur's true left.
I think we should all heed that advice.
Yes.
There's no doubt in the last 3 years,
this guy is true. I agree with you on that, Han. He is proof that, that MK Ultra works. Because yes,
the 3rd attempt.
This guy Harold is everything I hate about the libs and Democrats. Honestly, acquiescing, condescending, but not in a good way. Not with Riz.
On his life. Just to remind everybody, a litany of things. You have 3 attempts on President Trump's life. You have.
Would speak to me as if I was the enemy because I'm a leftist in a condescending way, like he's speaking to his so-called opponents across the table.
Congressman Scalise in 2017 that
Like, his arguments are only allowed to be so good. She's like, do you want to respond to this leftist violence? And he's like, no. Like, even I can come up with a better response than no.
a baseball practice and a charity event where Democrats play Republicans. You had two Democratic Wisconsin state legislators who were killed. You had one was killed and his spouse was killed. You had Paul Pelosi hammered in his house. You had in 2022 along with Kavanaugh. You had Governor Whitmer, a group of men try to kidnap her or put a plot together to kidnap her. Dana, I think it's more, and I hear Jesse, and I understand there may be an abundance of it on the Democrat side right now. I don't look at it that way. I think we have reached a point, and let me first say, I agree with you 100%. This should not have happened at this hotel. There was a lapse somewhere, and I'm hoping, I saw you this morning, the wash thing the guy talked about, the hot wash, looking at the best practices. And
renowned intellectual Thomas Sowell. Like, bro, who is renowned? Yeah, okay.
But we're not the best practices. But we have a rot in our country. There's something in our culture that is not right, where people believe whatever disagreement they may have or conflict they may have with someone, they want to escalate it right away and resolve it through violence. And I just don't assign it to
don't want to drag this comic book creator, though, because I like comic books, but
either party. There's no doubt the language on my side about President Trump has to stop. But a couple things can be true at once. It has to stop on every side. We can't say that Democrats are evil and Satan-like, and we can't say that if they win, they're going to be bloodbaths in politics. My dear pal here and I got into it a little bit last week because I just don't like. I think the name calling, may not mean it, but some people may not digest it and interpret it and be able to handle it as well as others. You think we were just less than a year and a half ago, a guy came here, a young kid, Luigi Mangione, decided to shoot and kill a CEO of a healthcare company because he didn't like, presumably, the practices of that company. We have a deficit, a deadly deficit around people being able to understand if they disagree with someone, you don't shoot them. I thought President Obama, he probably got the message.
Yeah, no, I don't. As a leftist who may or may not own a lot of guns, I reserve the right to use those if I feel threatened.
Probably said something.
And only because this is America, Jack, and I know every other motherfucker has one too, right?
Too early and probably should come back and correct it because there's no doubt this kid did what he did to try to kill the president. But the fact that the main part of his argument was, and I think the president of Canada, the president of India was, you cannot resolve differences in a democracy through violence. And unfortunately, we are so steeped in
What is the look on a president's face?
that right now. It is frightening, Dave. It's absolutely terrifying.
I think one of the things about that, Greg, in terms of like the first part of Obama's statement, it reminded me of all the reports of terrorism that you say, well, now we'll never know. What could it possibly be?
Well, they're running away from this story because they know they got their fingerprints all over it. I disagree with Harold, with all due respect.
Fingerprints all over it. Yeah, it's like a Destiny DDGer is what it is. It's a fucking Dylan Burns, pro-Russia, quote-unquote leftist guy. That's what that is. That's the kind of guy this is. Yes. Some of them are unhinged, they're actual anarchists.
A call for unity is not for us. We don't need it.
He called for it, though.
No, I'm just saying that it's not for me to hear. It's for your side. We don't need it because it's only a one-way thing. You mentioned some examples like the Pelosi thing, which is a mental illness thing. The Wisconsin thing, we still aren't sure what the hell happened there. The Whitmer thing was a plot. Who created the plot? That would take an entire special to go under. I disagree with Jesse. This guy did hear voices. They were Tim Waltz's, they were Ted Lieu's, they were Brandon Johnson's, they were CNN's, they were The View, they were MS Now. Okay, I think this is a helpful assassination attempt because it is the first one to show that you can be radicalized by liberal smugness.
Be sure to like and subscribe.
Radicalized by liberal smugness. Fuck does that? He thought he had a zinger. And they cut him off halfway through. Thought they had a little bit of respect for that motherfucker, but I guess they don't. Fuck. What did you just do? Okay. Okay, only this once.
You are a political commentator, and then you even built a lot of your base of your fan base that came to you and said, "Oh, you're starting a comic book company. I'm in." A lot of them are probably like they were people that came to know you from your perspective on the world. Yeah. Tell me that. How did your perspective now come about? Start from where you first became politically interested, engaged, like caring about issues, to the world you're at now where you're geeking out about praxeology.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, I started as, I was a leftist for sure. There's some old, like, you probably could find me wearing Shea shirts. I was bad, but I didn't know anything. I was very young. I didn't know anything about anything. So that's how I started. Like, when I was getting, like, it was just straight up leftism. Like, socialistic line of thinking.
Okay.
What changed for me and what did it for me was economics. Like that, the subject matter, right? As a subject matter. And I remember still being stuck in this box. I tell the story all the time. You know, I was still stuck in this hyper-racialized sort of box. And I was like, even when I learned about kind of this concept, I was intrigued by economics. I was like, I want to know what the black economists, what they got to say, right? Thank the Lord Jesus that the ones that I encountered that I resonated with was Dr. Thomas Sowell as well as Dr. Walter E. Williams.
Okay.
Why do you think that
So he likes the same guys you like? Got it.
Resonated with you?
Well, because they would talk about...
Because they're titans.
Literally.
Especially, well, we were talking about Walter Williams earlier, but Thomas Sowell is just like... He's just a beast.
Yeah, he's just up,
and he's still going strong.
Still 90 years old, still going. Like
he's
a beast. It's nothing.
But he's hardcore. He's like he's not pussyfooting around with his worldview.
Nah, he's unapologetic. That's what I love about him. But even on the subject, what I loved about him so much.
Okay, what is it about certain people, including yourself, I guess, that are into unapologetic people? Whatever the fuck that means. Like people call Trump, I like him because he's unapologetic. He say fuck you and say no, really fuck you, bitch. And walk away. And I like that. I like that in a man and a leader. I like it when they never fucking apologize because you're never wrong. Like,
or why I think it resonated with me when I was younger and still like into that, definitely that hyper-racialized box, is that they were entertaining those ideas, right? So they were saying, okay, look at this problem of like, okay, poverty or something like that. And thinking about it in a way that was, it's a problem, but instead of looking at it like, white man bad or the man bad, they were looking at it more so from, okay, how do we get into this position? So let's acknowledge this thing that maybe you don't like. Okay, let's go through it. And, you got like Thomas Sowell and his economic facts and fallacies. You got obviously basic economics is like number one for me with them. But even like with Dr. Walter E. Williams, the state against blacks, it's genius. He talks about like some of those like minimum wage, right, and how that has historically hurt particularly young black men. So he wasn't afraid, and neither one of them were afraid to talk about some of those issues that are just general talking points. But they were coming from a place of like, okay, it was very informative.
That a minimum wage is a bad idea. To not have a minimum wage. Right.
And, getting me to sort of understand why things are the way that they are.
Let's
right
go.
Now.
I know I've seen you out there talking about the minimum wage issue. So what was Walter Williams talking about?
So-
What did you learn from him about the history of the minimum wage?
So, and how it has historically been used and always been used to price people out of the market, right? So what Walter E. Williams would talk about was that, think about it. You are in some busted up neighborhood, busted up area. You're going to a busted up school.
Right.
It's crap, right? Top to bottom. He's saying that most of those types of people, or those young people that are in those situations, the place that they're going to learn the most about the world and provide value to it is in the workplace.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Right?
My son's been working at jobs since 7th grade.
Period. Right? That's where
This idea that kids just ain't working enough when they're younger and should be already working in the factories and there shouldn't be a minimum wage. This is fucked up. This is a fucked up idea. And the idea that there has to be a school where you grow up and it's subpar is bullshit, because under true socialism, the thing that he's shunning, that would be a perfectly good school that that person would be going to, no matter their income. Okay. So there's the counter argument to even the fact that that person would even exist if socialism was allowed to flourish.
they're going to learn a lot of that, especially under those conditions where they're not going to the best schools and all that.
Yeah, but under the conditions of true socialism, like Amir Mamdani, those schools aren't going to be allowed to exist anymore, where they're called inner city schools. They're going to be just as good as the outer city schools, okay? Or the Manhattan ones, because they're going to have funding. So, okay.
And he was saying, you
sir.
look at minimum wage as a
Right.
means to say, okay, well, let's say that someone they are willing to give you that experience. Maybe they say, hey, man, I'll give you $5 to hour just to mop the floors. That's all.
Oh, that's all you're worth is $5.
That's all, and that'll come with a set of experiences and all that. What the minimum wage, unfortunately, does is say that, well, for one, it's illegal for them to hire you, right? So you can't do it. You literally can't, even if you're willing.
It better be 15.
Yeah, it has to be that, and they're not going to hire you for that amount at all. So what's happening is you have these able-bodied people, young people, that would.
The argument that young people are able-bodied and should be working is not one I agree with, period. We're not going back to 1928, okay? No, I'm good.
Be better suited to learn about the world, right?
Yeah, not working. Not learning capitalism and how bad the man is, dumbass. What?
Sure, everything. Especially if they're coming from these broken homes, right?
Hey, why are the homes broken? Because of fucking not having enough money, motherfucker. What? Oh, wait. Oh, Thomas Sowell believes that homes are broken because something to do with genetics.
Right? Learning about the world in the workplace. And the government has made it illegal for them to do so. And
what? No, it hasn't. This guy's already full of like misinformation. You're saying throw money at the problem, the issue fixed, except they have never gotten more money than present day. Wait, I don't understand what you mean. Sorry.
that has hurt generations of young black people.
Okay, so Thomas Sowell's counter argument is that, well, minimum wage should go away, and we should allow young black kids to start working and starting their businesses in the ghetto, basically, so they can pay other young folk. And like basically, he's saying a 10-year-old could start a business and pay his friends $1, and it could be like 1922. Okay, great. The kid gets to mop the floor and get some experience. Then what? You give him a $1 raise that the year later, then he's up to $4 an hour? What? The capitalist gets to decide how much to pay the fucking employee. I don't think so. What? You get a job and it's required of you to work at that job 40 hours a week, and they want to pay you $4 an hour? And you're going to do what? Or are you going to rent?
Which is why
this is 1920s thinking. That's my point. Thomas Sowell's head is stuck in 1928. Okay? Nah.
even if you
Bro, there's so many holes in this. Come on.
talk about that, and Walter E. Williams will talk about this all the time. You know, you look at the.
I mean, respect this guy. I appreciate him explaining how he came to this, and listen to this guy. But
the minimum wage in areas
straight up
where
wrong.
it gets raised, and then you look at the demographics that are impacted in terms of the unemployment, and it's always young black boys all the time. That's always been the case. Even from talking about latter half of the teenage years, that's what it's young.
Yeah, it's systemic racism. It has nothing to do with that. I just don't like those young black boys. They're too riley. Actually, words I've heard from white women. I don't hire young black boys because they speak too loudly. Literally from a white woman's mouth.
Young black men, in that case, minimum wage is impacting them the same way. So it was so insightful to hear that talked about and discussed in the way that he does. So he takes hey, this is a legitimate problem that even people on the quote unquote left can agree with in terms of the situation it is that they're in, but they're being crippled by their own.
Yeah. Okay, we agree on that point. Yes. However, our solution is completely different, and it's the opposite. It's called social welfare. It's called welfare, or whatever you want to call it. It's called making stuff cheaper for people that don't have the money and people that have the money, making healthcare cheaper, making healthcare free.
Government, and unfortunately, a lot of people are advocating for that, and it's their own destruction.
I know even in the early days, like in the 1930s, the labor unions were explicit about this. They would say, oh, we don't want this generation of black workers coming up to the north from the south to compete with us.
That was literally why it was first implemented in America. That is an absolute fact. It was to price black people, particularly, but also women and young people out of the markets by predominantly, actually exclusively white labor unions. That's a fact. That's not my opinion. Go research the Bacon Davis Act for anybody that wants.
That doesn't fucking matter. Has no relevance. Those don't exist anymore. The way things are used changes over time. Hello?
To look at this is not, and it's funny because it's worked that way in other countries as well. Australia, South Africa. You look at these places where.
My man is just describing liberal economics. Excuse me? The fuck?
Where they were literally implementing those minimum wage laws to price people out of the market. That's how it historically has worked, and that's how it was originally implemented across various spots. No matter what.
How does that price people out of the market? What? Who's getting priced out of the market? They won't hire a black person below 5. It seems, sir, that you're a black person, so I can't hire you because the minimum wage says that it's $7 an hour. I refuse to pay a black person any more than 5. What? Is that what he's insinuating? That's what I'm getting from this conversation. Why am I getting the wrong thing? Then he's admitting that discrimination exists, which is this complete antithesis as to what Soul is preaching, how there's such an even ground for black folk and this racism doesn't exist, and color, I don't see color.
What people may think that it is now, when it was first implemented, that was why. It was to price And I'm glad that you brought that up. That's not an opinion. That they were pretty open about it. Like, we don't want these people. We don't want to have to compete with these people in their labor.
When so you encounter these ideas, and they're radical because they're. I mean, you're not turning
radical
on TV
because they're
at the
they're
time
full of
or even
holes.
now, and hearing anybody who claims to care.
I'm a dumb random Twitch streamer throwing holes at this, bro. I'm sorry, but that's why it's radical. This is like when the Reddit nerd thinks they know everything and they can fucking write the thesis. No. Okay, Shatter said, at one time, unemployment rate of white teens was higher than black teens because black teens would work for less. White businesses preferred hiring cheaper black labor. That wasn't racism, that was business. Business trumps racism. Like how you use trumps. That's great.
Say that.
Right.
And then Walter Williams and Thomas Sowell and others, but especially those two, as far as like prominent black intellectuals, are
okay. At one time, the unemployment rate, yeah, exactly. At one time,
are just they're saying it. They're saying this is the reality, and
yeah.
What does that start to do in your mind? Does that open doors? Are you you know? I think there's some people.
Let's hear the doors.
Some people they get this one door open.
Yeah.
And like the dominoes.
That's what it was for me. It was the rabbit hole. Once I learned about them.
Oh yeah. Where you start doubting yourself and doubting all the shit in your brain, saying, "No, that ain't true."
One thing turned into another. So you go from reading about them and definitely the concept of economics, and definitely when you're floating around Seoul, you're talking about like more Chicago economics. So that leads me into the Milton Friedmans of the world, the Hayeks. Well, let's say start with Milton Friedman, and then we go to more on the Austrian side of things, maybe even Milton Friedman's son, David, or you know, definitely once you go Austrian, you're talking, you know, the Hayeks of the world, Mises. Again, that's why I kept bringing up human action because of that, and that's just a rabbit hole. So literally, it was one thing. That was my entry level, and then all that, and I went full blown Rothbard by the end of it. But it all started with Soul and Dr. Walter E. Williams. That's how it was for me.
What about those ideas changed for you in terms of how you live your life or how you think about your daily choices?
I would say everything.
Everything.
Look, I was very much, again, a socialistic, collectivistic. That was kind of my line of thinking when I was young.
All right.
I became a lot more individualistic, which doesn't mean that, like, hey, I don't care about anybody. I actually looked at it more in a positive light in that, well, my world only moves if I move it type of situation.
Taking responsibility.
That's what, and accountability. Those were, I think, what came from my just learning about economics. That's what came from that, is that individuality and, you know, less excuses. Definitely once you read, I mean, it's hard to, you read some of this stuff by Soul and it's like, you feel like you can conquer the world and you really want to take like responsibility for yourself. Definitely when you realize just how people that in previous generations had it way better than I ever had, including them, right? Like in previous generations, I had it better than them, and like, what excuses do I have to be making here? I mean, in comparison to the previous generation, my mother's generation, my grandmother's generation especially, I have access to things that they never would have been able to even conceptualize in terms of opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And sir, you have been lied to as to why you have those freedoms now. Because if it wasn't for your predecessors fighting for your freedoms, you wouldn't be having this conversation with this white guy right now on TV. Like, what are you talking about, brother? Seriously. Bro.
So I need to be taking advantage of it. So I would say that.
Oh, this pick yourself up by the goddamn bootstraps bullshit. Reverse Uno'd, spoken by a black guy to another black guy in a different language, in a different way, by Thomas Sowell, and then reverse engineered and popping back out his mouse into your head. Like, what is happening here? Why is this so entertaining? Well, why do you feel like this is the route? This is the true measure of the capitalist hammer slamming on your head, fully accepting the fucking brain rot and copium, that it's all your fault that you're not rich. It's all your fault. All you got to do is accept responsibility. It doesn't matter what your color is. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or brown or purple or whatever. We don't see color. This whole thing is made up. This racism thing is just used by the woke left to foment division so that racism can continue to exist. The reverse Uno of these talking points that they do is very compelling. However, they're not based on anything, and they have holes in them. Big holes.
That's what economics and learning that, again, the more.
And the big holes are, in this whole line of thought, is it's nothing different. It's continue on. It's actually push the full speed ahead button on the end of capitalism and the end of you. Yeah, and that's some bullshit too. There's some other stuff they're cooking up. Who cares? So like Thomas Sowell will be like, yeah, the SPLCA is another example of what I'm talking about. Racism doesn't really exist. Systematic racism is made up. It's a construct. Blah, 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 blah.
Chicago and Austrian economics, not to.
The reason you're not rich and the reason you're disadvantaged isn't because you're black. It's because you're not good enough. And you need to pick yourself up by your bootstraps and go make that money. And listen to Thomas Friedman. Because liberal capitalism isn't gonna die. Look, we haven't killed anyone. We haven't killed millions of people like socialism, communism killed 40 million people. How dare you? The fuck is this shit, dude? We've directly killed people, as a matter of fact, because of capitalism, for oil, which is capitalism.
And nonsense. I learned more about that, and because I learned more about that, it impacted my daily life. Because
and he is actually right about this point. He said it right there. What he is just talking about with Thomas Sowell, because it is radical talking, and because it is radical thought, and because it is presented in a way that is very well spoken, I have to admit. They are good at what they do. They are. They're very good at what they do. However, it's still misinformation.
Because it allowed me to understand that. Because I learned more about that, it impacted my daily life.
Because he learned more about that. Now, where he's right about that is that the left, and specifically socialist leftists, don't do a good enough job explaining the way that I am, in my opinion, what being leftist is for real. Like we are, I feel like I need to counter the narratives. Yeah, he thinks Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton are race hustlers. Whatever the fuck that means. Like that's what I'm saying. The reason it feels scummy is because this guy and Thomas Sowell are basically talking shit about the people that have given them the rights by their acts of defiance over the years. being involved in the anti-race riots and all that and fucking whatever, all that, we would still have segregation.
Because it allowed me to understand that, again, the world moves if I move it for, it's not going to move.
Bro couldn't vote if it wasn't for those people. Thomas Sowell had nothing to do with that. It's easy to sit on the sidelines and be a sideline fucking referee, right? After the fact and go, well, they really did this wrong, and they should have fucking, and you know, the rights we've got weren't never taken away. We just didn't struggle hard enough. The fuck?
If someone else moves it for me, and it's that's a liberating thing, I think.
If you like this clip, we've got more where that.
Of course, he laughs about being a right wing grifter, because he is grifting to the right, because he's grifting for the right, whether he's on the left or the right or the middle. Even if you're a fucking centrist, you can be grifting hard for the right now, depending on what you're saying. You know who's grifting hard for the right now? Cenk Uygur, supposedly the hardest leftist. There isn't anyone in fucking news that wouldn't call Cenk Uygur a leftist. He's grifting for the right. He's helping that money's funnel towards Tucker. He mentions Tucker all the time, how great he is, because he just, he's so reasonable. Such a reasonable Republican, like those old guys that we used to know. Don't forget, Uncle Cenk used to be a Republican. That's right. Holy shit, it's late. All right, chat. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, but I had to put holes in it. Yeah, Cenk is a grifter. I thoroughly agree. Yeah. That's why I brought him up. Believe me, Thomas Sowell makes plenty of money and is old as fuck, okay? And the thing is like, yeah, and it's even worse because he started out as a communist. Turncoat. Absolute turncoat. And now lying full frontal on that too. See what I mean? Even more of a reason I don't like him. Obviously misunderstands everything about communism. Is locked in 1928, like I said. His brain. He doesn't understand we can talk about communism, socialism, and having a most socialistic government that's closer to equality without the problems that we had before. We can. Because we've learned those lessons. We can learn those lessons. We can do different things. It's not the same. Because it won't be capitalism. Because we already know where that's going. So. Yeah. Thomas Sowell on the myths of economic inequality. One of his most famous little dioceses. Yeah, I've seen it before. Anyway, thanks for sharing. I got to go, unfortunately. Got the work chime bell going off in the morning, chatters. That's right. Remember, it is corrupt to the fucking core. That is true. Problem is, we have no power. Yeah. That's a weird. Yeah, I can't even get into that, dude. I gotta go. We continue this conversation, manana, on Tuesday, isn't it, mate? That's right. I'll be here. All right. I'll see you then. Bye.